They lied to you about what makes a genius. It's not smooth speeches or best-selling formulas. It's not endless positivity or playing it safe. True greatness, the kind that carves your name into the soul of humanity, comes from pain, from paradox, from staring into the abyss and writing it down. Dostoevsky wasn't just a writer. He was a prophet wrapped in ink and torment. While influencers chased trends, he exposed the human spirit like a surgeon with no anesthetic. And here's the wild part. His stories, written in a world without electricity or smartphones, hit harder than half the modern self-help books combined. Why? Because he didn't care about looking smart. He cared about truth. Raw, dirty, uncomfortable truth. The kind that frees you. The kind that dares you to ask, what if this is what it means to be alive? If you've ever felt lost, restless, or like something deeper is calling you, this video is for you. But be warned, once you step into Dostoevsky's world, you won't come out the same. People talk about pain like it's something to be avoided at all costs, but Dostoevsky? He lived in it. We're talking about a man who stood in front of a firing squad, heard the command to fire, and then, in a twist that feels almost too dramatic for fiction, was pardoned at the last second. Now imagine carrying that weight in your chest every day. Add to that the freezing exile in Siberia, the gambling addiction that left him broke, epileptic seizures that struck without warning, and debts piling up like storm clouds. And yet, through all that chaos, he shaped a genius, a greatness that only suffering could forge. It's easy to admire someone who's had it easy. But real courage, real virtue is born in fire. Dostoevsky wasn't writing fairy tales. He was documenting the battlefield of the soul. His life teaches something most people overlook. Hardship doesn't just break people, it refines them. If you're going through chaos right now, maybe that storm isn't punishment, maybe it's preparation. Keep a journal, write down what you're learning in your worst days. That's not just therapy, that's philosophy in motion. Dostoevsky didn't find meaning despite the darkness. He found it in the darkness. And what's fascinating is how all of this pain didn't make him bitter. It made him brutally honest. He looked life in the eye and didn't flinch. That's why his books hit you right in the gut. They're not just stories. They're blueprints for facing your own demons. You read The Gambler, and you don't just understand addiction, you feel it. You read his letters, and you can sense the ache, the sensibility of someone torn between despair and greatness. And just like that, the stage is set, not for a story, but for a deep dive into the battlefield of the human mind. Most people skim the surface of their own thoughts like stones on a lake. Dostoevsky? He dove straight to the bottom. He was one of the first writers to treat the human mind like a battlefield, where courage and fear wrestle in silence, and virtue hangs by a thread. His characters aren't just fictional. They're you on a bad day. They wrestle with guilt, shame, belief, temptation. And he never offers easy answers. That's what makes it genius. He knew that to explore the soul, you can't play it safe. Take Crime and Punishment, for example. Raskolnikov isn't just a guy who commits murder. He's a walking moral crisis. A philosophical earthquake. The book doesn't ask, was it wrong? It asks, what happens to a man when he tries to play God? You can see the cracks form in his logic, his mental state unravel. The real prison isn't made of bars, it's built inside the mind. This is where Dostoevsky excels. He turns self-reflection into a high-stakes drama. That kind of insight, it's rare, it's virtuous, and it's exactly what the world still needs. In a world obsessed with filters and surface impressions, Dostoevsky's approach is refreshing, maybe even revolutionary. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He peeled back the layers of pride and showed us what we hide from ourselves. His stories remind us that self-knowledge takes guts. Want to try it? Read one of his monologues and journal how it makes you feel. Talk to yourself without judgment. Because once you face your internal chaos, you start seeing the chaos around you with new eyes. And that leads us to why his work transformed literature forever. When people toss around the word masterpiece, they usually mean something polished, impressive, maybe even elegant. But Dostoevsky's masterpieces? They're raw, explosive. They feel like someone cracked open their chest and wrote with their soul. Crime and Punishment, The Brothers Karamazov, Demons, The Idiot, Notes from Underground. These aren't just stories. They're intellectual hurricanes. Each one tackles a different aspect of the human condition, Yet all of them circle back to the same burning question. What does it mean to be human? In The Idiot, we meet Prince Mishkin, a man so purely good, he's practically destroyed by the world's cynicism. That book alone could teach a philosophy class on virtue, courage, and sensibility. And then you've got The Brothers Karamazov, where three brothers become a kind of moral laboratory. One stands for faith, another for reason, and the third for chaos. That's not fiction. That's genius-level introspection. The beauty here isn't just in the plot twists, it's in the ideas. He weaves complex debates into the dialogue without ever sounding preachy. It's philosophy that bleeds, the kind that makes you question things you never thought to question. If you're serious about growing as a thinker, start with Notes from Underground. It's short, sharp, and hits like a cold slap of truth. Dostoevsky didn't write books. He built mirrors. And in those mirrors, we start seeing the timelessness of his questions. Ever notice how some books age like milk while others feel like they were written yesterday? That's the magic of Dostoevsky. He tapped into questions so deeply human, they refuse to expire. Morality, free will, redemption, suffering. These aren't trendy topics, they're eternal ones. He wasn't chasing relevance. He was relevance. You can read his work in the middle of a tech-fueled 21st century and still feel like he's whispering directly to your soul. There's something profoundly courageous about confronting pain the way he does. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid it, but Dostoevsky leaned in. He showed us that suffering can sharpen sensibility, that moral struggle can lead to greatness. His characters walk a tightrope between salvation and ruin, and so do we. Haven't you ever stood at a crossroads, unsure of who you were becoming? That's why his books still speak. Because the human dilemma never really changes, just the clothes it wears. Want to put this into practice? Try reading The Brothers Karamazov with a question in mind. What would I do in their place? Don't just observe, engage. Use the characters like training weights for your own conscience. That's how you turn fiction into philosophy. That's how literature becomes a tool for transformation. And speaking of transformation, wait until you see how much impact Dostoevsky had on the actual architects of modern psychology and thought. You can tell a lot about someone by who they impress, and Dostoevsky? He blew the minds of giants. Nietzsche, the razor-sharp prophet of will and chaos, once said Dostoevsky was the only person who ever taught him anything about psychology. That's no small compliment. Then there's Freud, that Freud, who called him the greatest novelist of all time. Imagine being so in tune with human nature that both existential philosophers and psychoanalysts claim you as their godfather. But it didn't stop there. Carl Jung studied him. Sartre argued with him. Camus admired him. Kafka? He practically built his style on Dostoevsky's blueprint. And let's not forget modern thinkers and storytellers, from Jordan Peterson to filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, who echo Dostoevskian themes in their work. This isn't just greatness, it's contagious greatness. His courage to dive into the soul's darkest corners gave others permission to do the same. He opened the philosophical floodgates, and the world hasn't stopped swimming since. Want a real-world way to experience this ripple effect? Read Notes from Underground back-to-back with Camus' The Stranger or Sartre's Nausea. Feel the friction. Notice the lineage of thought. You'll start to see that philosophy isn't a closed book, it's a conversation across time. And Dostoevsky? He's the voice that still echoes the loudest. But what made his voice so powerful wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Dostoevsky didn't write like an author, he wrote like a man possessed. His pages throb with tension, as if each sentence were teetering on the edge of some emotional cliff. You feel it in the way his characters interrupt each other, spiral into monologues, explode in rage, collapse into prayer. It's messy. It's chaotic. And that's the brilliance. Real minds aren't tidy. Real virtue isn't polished. His style mirrors life in all its beautiful, unfiltered madness. Dialogue in his books. It's like watching a live debate between the soul and its shadow. You've got existential questions dropping mid-conversation like grenades. Does God exist? Are we free? What is guilt? Want to experience that emotional and philosophical charge for yourself? Try reading The Idiot out loud, seriously. It's a different experience. The rhythm, the emotion, the psychological weight, it all hits harder when spoken. Or better yet, Write your own inner monologue after reading one of his. What are you struggling with? What belief are you afraid to say out loud? Dostoevsky shows us that when you put your demons on paper, they lose some of their power, which is exactly why he still feels so relevant in today's world. Scroll through social media for 5 minutes and you'll see it. Confusion, division, anxiety masked as confidence. We're drowning in noise, but starving for meaning. And that's exactly where Dostoevsky steps in like a quiet, piercing whisper. He doesn't offer quick fixes, he offers confrontation. With yourself, with the world. His writing dares you to face the mess in your own soul. In a time where everyone wants to be seen, he reminds us it's far more courageous to see ourselves. Dostoevsky's genius wasn't predicting the future, it was understanding what never changes. People still wrestle with belief, guilt, identity. We still pretend to be okay when we're crumbling inside. And he got that. It's like he reached into the heart of modern life and said, I knew this would happen. And somehow, he still offers hope through it all. So if you're feeling lost, numb, or just tired of the shallowness out there, maybe it's time to go deeper. And hey, if you want to keep unlocking this kind of powerful knowledge, don't just disappear. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join this journey. Because every week, we dive deeper. And trust me, this is just the beginning.